welcome everyone to another Techno Saturday with me, John Selway. Happy Halloween. I know I'm not doing a Halloween themed show or wearing a costume or anything. As I've gotten older, I tend to kind of be a little more relaxed about it, and it's all about my kids' Halloween nowadays. So just another regular Techno Saturday for me. And looks like we have a few viewers already. Hello, welcome. What's up, Max? No sax today, Max. No maxophone. Sorry, another time. John H. Kingston III from Rockaway Park, New York. Welcome back. And Lush Interpolation, Parish Bananarific. Wow, some of these handles you guys have are ridiculous. I like that. Parish, nice to have you here. So, on the agenda today, it was sort of preparing loops for arrangement was the title of it, and but that's what you're always doing. I mean, right? This is kind of when you're working in Ableton Live. A lot of times the workflow starts with clips, looping, looping. Right? Not everybody works this way. Some people start in the arrangement view and just lay everything down on the timeline how they want. So kind of coming from the more looping pattern-based workflow, and working in the session view in Ableton Live is kind of like, it's based on sort of the old school hardware sequencer model where you've got patterns that repeat, whether it's a drum machine or some kind of step sequencer. Of course, you're not limited to that. And the default loop length in live, when you generally, is going to be 1 bar. And a lot of times people start to do their work in 1 bar. And then you build up a groove, especially with techno, which is all about these repetitive looping phrases. You can kind of get a little stuck in these short loops, and it can be difficult to break out of that, to think, especially if you haven't had a lot of practice at it. So, and there are a lot of different ways to approach it. I've talked about, in previous episodes, I've talked about doing automation and modulation to make the sounds change over time, and then kind of following along that to guide you in your arrangement and on the timeline. And I've done what I'm doing today is more sort of looking at the clips, looking at this loop-based groove that I have, and trying to expand on those ideas and start to think ahead about how I want things to change once I get into the timeline, once I get into the arrangement view. I'm already going to have some arrangement moves built in when I copy those clips in. And that involves sort of, taking 1 bar phrases and making them 2, making them 4, making them 8, making them 16, making them 32, or odd numbers if you want things to happen sort of out of time in a way and not have your typical phrase length that people usually do when they're working in 4/4. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing. And also, just to say, I'm not talking about taking loops from a sample library and, although we could. I'm looking more at MIDI clips and things that I played, that I programmed, and then taking them further before I get into the arrangement view. So that's what we're doing today. Now, of course, this is presented to you by 343 Labs. I think our regular viewers know all of this, but 343 TV is our way of reaching out to a wider audience, sharing what we know, showcasing, the different instructors and presenters that we have here. 343 Labs is a school, of course, located in New York and now in Berlin. Berlin's going great. We have online courses as well. I do synthesis and sound design. Got one of those starting up, another one starting this November. I can probably throw some of those details into the chat for anybody who's interested. Of course, give us a like if you're so inclined, or a dislike if you aren't. And, give us some feedback. Please join in the chat, ask questions, respond to what I'm doing, and I'll be checking in with you every now and then. looks like we've got a little message here about our giveaway this week. One of our sponsors is Splice. Some of you might be familiar with Splice and their sample packs that they release, and they also do a really cool project sharing online, like cloud-based collaboration tool where you can have all your stuff saved on the server and then add collaborators and share the same files and work back and forth, which is a great thing to have nowadays when we can't always get together. And I use it regularly with students. I have people share their projects with Splice. It makes sure, it shows you which plugins are being used, and helps you sort of stay compatible and in sync with each other. And you can save different versions, and it'll tag the name of whoever's made the latest version. It'll put their name on it, so you can, and it saves iterations. It's almost like a kind of a simple time machine for your DAW projects. And so I really like to use that. I use that more than the samples. So Max is asking, what's on my shirt? This is one of the nerdiest shirts that I own. It's Syntar. These guys that have been around forever, they do repairs and restorations of vintage synthesizers. They make, you guys should look them up on YouTube. There's some really fun videos. There was a Yamaha FM synth that they did a whole story on, and in the middle of it, we'll have to find a link for that. In the middle of it was one of the best descriptions of what FM synthesis is, one of the best breakdowns. They could have just taken this like 2 minutes out of the middle of this like hour-long video, and it would have been like the best FM tutorial on YouTube. It's really great. So definitely worth looking out for these guys, especially if you're into the hardware synthesizer world, because they know what they're talking about. So let's switch over to what I'm doing in Ableton Live, and maybe I don't know, work on music a little bit and not just listen to me talk the whole time. And this is something I worked on a couple of weeks ago. This is the thing that I was working on with some presets from Analog Lab. And, I've worked on it just slightly more, and I'm just now starting to think beyond the loops, right? So I figured this would be a good thing to work on today. Let me know how the volume is. I want to make sure you guys can hear it, and you can hear me. And I'm just going to dance here while I listen and think about what I'm going to do. Chair dancing. All right. Put the drums and the bass line. We have this little soft, trippy melody line that follows the bass. All right, that can come in and out. And that already, this is a 4-bar pattern. The bass is a 4-bar pattern. And then I have a couple of chord stabs. Kind of gives it a slightly housey flavor, I guess. Have a brighter stab. Get that in, starting on the right beat. All right, I really like that one. And the reverse or the swelling reverb that comes after it really makes it for me. Definitely going to make use of that. All right, I have this lead line which I didn't get the right sound for this yet, so I'm just going to ignore this one for now. Maybe it'll come back to that. All right, and then we have our drum parts. I added a couple little things on top of that, but let's see. We have, go away bass, sorry. Got the kick drum. Got a couple of layers of percussion. That's right, Tetro, I'm swaying. It's the Selway sway. Thanks, I guess. All right, the clap is happening. We've got this hand percussion loop that I generated sort of semi-randomly just by clicking on notes without thinking about it too hard. And your typical open hi-hat, although, you know, what makes it for me is not to only have it on the 8th note in between the kicks. It's these little ghost notes that make it have a rolling feeling. And that's where most of my variation is coming in. So this is actually already an example of the kind of process that I'm talking about today. So it started out, I'm going to break this back down to how it started with just one bar of it, you know, and let's just delete these ghost notes. Right. So it started out like, you know, typical, okay, it works. Is that the right? There we go. Right, so that's easy. Let's crop that. So this is how we started. And then I put in these ghost notes. It gives it that sort of roll. That little in-between kind of sway feeling. Max is asking, can you talk about making cool sounding hi-hats? Am I using groove or swing? Right now, no. Except, you know, Live, of course, has like grooves that you can apply that change timing and velocity. So actually, yeah, I am using groove in that I'm using velocity and loud soft. And, you know, ghost notes are like hitting the drum real quiet. It's like there's the strong beat, and then, you know, already just a plain upbeat open hi-hat is in syncopation with the kick. The kick's the strong beat, right? And then the hi-hat's coming in off on the offbeat in between the kicks, right? We're already off topic, Max. All right. Right, so you have your, you know, simple syncopation of that hi-hat. But then if I put in some very quiet beats on the in between 16th notes, that's adding extra syncopation, and that's changing the groove. I might even do something like this where like every other open 8th note hi-hat is louder and softer. So I could bring the first one down a little bit, and the second one, well, it's all the way up, and then the third one down a little bit. So it's going to be kind of, you know, the first quarter note is quieter, the second quarter note is accented. So that's changing the feel. And that kind of detail in your hi-hats makes such a huge difference in the overall groove, especially with this style of music. It's really important. So anyway, so the ghost notes and the groove thing. All right, let's zoom out and look at a bigger picture. I'm going to duplicate that. And so instead of having a 1 bar, I have 2 bars, and then I'm going to make a change. I'm going to create a variation in half of it. I can either simplify the first half or make the second half more complex or just different. So then it becomes an A and a B. So, you know, maybe I delete a note from the first half. Or maybe I don't have a ghost note on the first beat. And that's actually making the first beat of every 2 bars emphasized because there's an open space there. You can duplicate that again. Maybe I'll add a hi-hat so it has a little bit more of a fill-like thing at the end because we hear more 16th notes. Yeah, a little loud. All right, now you might have noticed something. Let's switch gears here for a second. So that's me like taking 1 bar and turning it into 4 and making variations and I'm thinking ahead already about more changes over time that make a repetitive groove more interesting and engaging. And so you also probably noticed that the kick drum dropped out there for a moment. I didn't do that myself. Originally, this was just, you know, here's my kick, and originally this was just 1 bar. Right? And I took that and well, actually, let's just start over. Let's crop that. And I'm just duplicating that, I don't know, until I have 8 bars. and then just deleting the last kick drum after 8 bars. And then I duplicate it again. I have 16 bars. And I'm going to take another, at the 16th bar, I'm taking out a couple more kick drums. So I have an even longer little small pause in that part. I could take that further. I could go do it again. And then maybe after 2 bars, I have the kick drum drop out for the last 2 bars after 30 measures, right? So this is, I'm already arranging, and I'm doing this semi-arbitrarily, but you can see it's like 8 bars and then 1 kick drum drops out, and then 8 bars and then you have a whole bar with no kick drums, and then there's another 8 bars and then 1 kick drum drops out, and you have another 8 bars, but then you have two measures of the kick drum dropping out, and that's creating a pattern. And it's creating variation in a simple part. All right. Paul, what's up, Paul Vanderwerf? You want to see more details about the kick drum. So this isn't this was an easy one. All I did was choose a sample. I didn't make this one. This was a situation where I wasn't doing synthesis or sound design. I just wanted to get going quickly, and I just typed kick into my browser and looked at all the samples. And actually, you can't hear my preview. Hold on. Can you guys hear that? Is it probably a little loud? All right, so I'm just going through all of the kick drums I have, and then as soon as I heard one that sort of fit the bill, I grabbed it. I didn't even think too hard about it. So that's an exercise in your taste and your experience of what kick drum sounds good for the style of music that you're making. You know, in this one, I wanted a clubby, thumpy kick that wasn't too aggressive, that was solid, and had a 909-like thump to it, and had a bright transient that would cut through the mix. So that's how I ended up with this sample. That was the first one I heard that fulfilled all of those wants in the kind of kick. But I could have picked that one. That's similar. It has a bright transient on it. It almost sounds like it's a kick mixed with a hi-hat. And it's punchy, and it's not way too deep. That's another one. Because I have a bass line that is dark, it's not bright. I don't want a kick that's subby and long. This is a sustained deep kick, a bass, and I wanted a punchy kick that's not going to compete with it too much. So like an 808 kick with a long tail with a long decay on it wouldn't do so well with this bass sound, I think. So, you know, let's see if I'm right. So let's just make a new MIDI track and drag in this other kick that might work, that sort of follows. All right. Not bad, darker. But it still serves a similar function. It's short and it's got a thump and a little bright transient. Compare it with this one. This one's better. This one's knocking. It's got more mids. Okay, anyway, so that's just sort of an exercise in what to listen for when you're choosing a kick. Jason says too much mud. Well, I haven't mixed this yet, Jason Shostak. Thank you very much. Of course, a good friend of mine like Jason's going to be the one who's going to heckle, right? That's okay. You're allowed. We go back a long way. Let's get back into the concept, right? So, and get rid of this extra kick I don't need. All right, so this one, I mean, do I want to create that same kind of variation in this loop? If I was doing kind of like sample-based drum loop techno, I wouldn't necessarily break this down in the same way. I might just treat it as audio. And then I would use other things to make a variation over time, like effects, modulation, automation, that kind of thing. But since I do have kind of fine control over this, right? In addition to taking a loop and stretching it out over a long time, you can also think about of course you can make variations of a loop to switch between, right? So let's duplicate this clip a couple times. And maybe I'll take some stuff out of this one. Now there's a drum in here that's hitting on the upbeat in between each, on the eighth note in between each quarter. That one, and it's quite bright. It's got a lot of energy. I'm going to deactivate that. So it's the same groove but more open. So this might be a good one to start with. And this is similar to how you would create variations in a session for live performance, where you might arrange your clips in order from low energy to higher energy, or we might take and start to create scenes by going horizontally across and making different combinations of clips to play together in different scenes. So this sort of has some crossover with like a live set workflow, where you're coming up with an idea and then making variations on it that you can trigger in real time when you're performing. In my case, though, I'm just thinking ahead about what I want to use in my arrangement. And I'm starting right now by subtracting elements rather than adding or changing. So it really it maintains with this rhythm. It's going to maintain the groove. Or at least that's what I aim to do. All right, let's take that simplified one, duplicate it, and then simplify it a little bit more. All right, let's take another bright one away. That's a nice slap on top that I can remove. That's also good. I'm going to keep doing this. Let's take the next brightest sound away, which I think is that guy. And they're kind of in reverse order now. If you're going from top to bottom, I might want the simple one first, and then go to the more complex one, and then go to the more complex one, and then go to the more complex one. But this is how it worked out. Let's hear how that sounds. Get rid of the clap. So this might be the clip that I start with, and then I move into bring in that little extra syncopated low hit there, and then eventually another layer of percussion, and then we get to the brightest one. All right. You know what? I didn't think about this, but I think recently Dolltr did a follow actions video. Is that right, Max? Do I remember that correctly? This is definitely a place where follow actions in live can come help you out. So let's do it this way. All right. So I've got my kick drum has got these, every 8 bars, there's a drop out of the kick. So I'm doing these 8-bar sections. I'm going to use follow actions to go through these clips and have each clip play 8 bars and then switch to the next one. So this is going to be 1, 2, 2, 3, and 4. Let's drag those into order just so it makes visual sense. All right, so these are my different variations. I could have done different colors too, but hey, numbers are fine. And actually, I'm going to shift select all of them and go over to launch, select 8 bars for the length. That means that after 8 bars, the action will happen. And then I'm going to choose on the left menu here, on the follow action menu here, you can choose the action. And I'm just going to say play next. Right? And then the bottom 2 numbers are probability. There is a 1 to 0 chance, that means that there is an absolute chance that that action will happen. All right. We can talk about probabilities another time in doing complicated things. So if I just start here with clip 1, it's queued up. It's going to play for 8 bars. And then after 8 bars, clip 2 is going to play. This is also, again, something you could use in prepping a live set. So you could have clips just playing themselves while you do something else. And you heard after that little kick drum drop out, the next clip came in with the next layer of percussion on top of it. Welcome, Adnan. You're not too late. We're still in the thick of things. You haven't missed really anything yet. Lush Interpolation says, I'm loving this kind of laddered approach to evolve a loop into variants. Yeah, it's fun. And also, just it's pretty easy because right now, I've just started with something more complex and then I took stuff away rather than having to think about how to change it. All right, and then it just went back to the first one again. I don't know if I necessarily want it to go back to the first one. So let's actually, I'm going to change these follow actions. So I'm going to make the last follow action I'm going to make it no action. So it's going to go from 1 to 4 and stay at 4. All right. Now, while that's playing, I'm going to think about other things I can do to create variations. Let's do something with the clap. All right, so right now, I just have a 1-bar simple clap on the 2 and 4. Let's bring that in at the next change. Let's duplicate that. Let's add in a little extra. And I didn't do it at I didn't do it at the end of 8 bars. I did it at 7. Why? I don't know. Just because it's slightly surprising. You think you might want that to happen at a squared end of 8 bars, right? But I don't know. Is that exactly how we always do it? Wouldn't it be nice to have little surprising things happen sometimes? I might even do something like this. I'm going to make instead of 8 bars, I'm going to do 7 bars. So what's going to happen is it's always going to shift earlier relative to the 8-bar sections. So this time we're going to hear it on the 7th bar. The next time around we're going to hear it a bar sooner. Why did that happen? This is also always something to be careful about when you're working with loop lengths and start and end lengths of clips in live is the resolution, right? There's, bar, beat, and 16th note. And I did 7 bars, 1 16th note, which just shifted everything off. It was actually kind of cool because I got another surprise syncopation. But let's keep it simple for now and make it exactly 7 bars. Max Wild is asking, any tips for programming congas for non-percussionists while you shimmy and sway in your seat listening to techno like I am? That's kind of what we did last time. I talked about how you might not be a drummer or have experience programming drum loops. That said, you can still come up with a really cool rhythm on a good set of sounds, mind you. You got to start with a good kit of sounds. And this is exactly how I'll show you this again. This is exactly how I came up with this pattern the last time, and I literally just. All right, I don't want the flams. No flams. I'm being so random. Okay, none of that either. All right, I don't know if this is going to be any good. If it's good, it's going to be by accident. But let's see. All right. Sorry, that was the old one. All right, the velocities are really lows on that. That's not awful. I mean, a real percussionist would go, oh man, you're cheating. And they would know that there's things in there that you wouldn't do with your hands. But it doesn't matter, especially for techno. You can be as creative with that as you want. Now, the next step I might do is thinking about groove, like the velocities, the human timing. Max mentioned whether I was using grooves or not before. I could go to the Live's Groove Pool, go in here to the Latin percussion, and just pick one of these. Afro Jazz Bongos is going to apply a different timing to this. It's a little swingy now, and it has some different velocities between the notes. Let's commit that so we can see it. And if you zoom in, I drew my notes with the pencil or the pen or whatever it is, and everything was exactly on the 16th note. But here, now there's some notes are a little late, some notes are a little early. I don't know if it did the velocity. It did very small changes in velocity, it looks like. Yeah, slight changes in velocity. But yeah, that's a serviceable loop that I didn't have to know how to play to make, because, you know, I'm starting out with a couple of good sounds that work well together. And I'm also kind of drawing high note, low note, high note, low note. So there's some back and forth between different tones and not too much repetition between the notes. I mean, if I had done more repetition, maybe it would be more like this. Like once you start hearing in those individual notes repeating, like machine gun style, each note's exactly the same, it sounds less realistic. That also depends on the instrument you're playing. But for sure, this is where you want to think about like velocity, you know, make those, when a note repeats like that in 16 notes adjacent to each other like that, making one quieter or louder so they're different makes a lot of difference in how well the groove works. Although, that said, I still kind of like this a little bit better when they were different tones. It sounds more realistic. Jason Shostek says, it's really cool, but a real percussionist would never do that. That's why it's techno. Exactly. Nail on the head, Mr. Shostek. All right, let's get back to our arranging stuff. All right. And I was thinking about what to do with the clap. So we never actually heard it do its thing. Let's listen to it for a second and hear how it sounds with 7 bars with a clap syncopated fill. All right. Now it's going to be in a different spot. Okay. Easy. All right, so we're using follow actions, and now we're about to get to the 4th clip, and it's not going to go back to the first one. And that way it'll stay at this energy level while we're jamming out here. Let's throw in the hi-hat. Yeah, right, and I did the longer break. There comes the hi-hat. I added a 727 maraca. I love this sound. It's so short and sharp, and it just cuts right through. And it's a classic drum machine sound for me. And even this one, just those little 16th notes, I might duplicate this out, and then every now and then do like a little fill or change it somehow. I mean, this is, what can I do? It's all 16th notes. I could do a little roll, like maybe on that last 8th note. Let's go to triplets. And you gonna play from here? Here we go. Yeah. So I've got now that little slight little roll in there. And we'll make it a little quieter so it doesn't sound too chunky with the lower velocities. I could even do what I did with the clap, where it comes in at an odd time. So I could do, let's just make the length of this, I don't know, 9 bars instead. And it's going to, for the first time, I'm taking that last bar and duplicating into the 9th bar. But this one, I'm not going to do the roll. We'll just keep it simple. All right. Actually, I need to get off of the triplet grid again so I don't mess it up. Okay. So now I've got a 9-bar loop, and that little roll is going to happen sort of every now and then, not in the same place over 8 bars. Okay. So here's another thing, another live specific thing that can help in creating an interesting arrangement moves in the session view before we move into the arrangement view is triggering one-shot samples or MIDI clips with follow actions. So I thought, oh, I want a crash to happen every now and then. So I went through my library, I picked the crash that just the first one that I didn't even think too hard about it, just the first crash that I thought might work, and dropped it in there. I polished it up a little bit. There's some effects, delay and a compressor, just to kind of, so I have this kind of crash with an echo that fades away with a long feedback on it. And the delay has a filter, so it's getting thinner and brighter as it echoes. It's cutting out the lows, what lows there are in a crash. And then kind of squashing it with the compressor to keep it sustained and louder as it feedbacks and fades. It fades away, but doesn't fade too quickly. And then, so that's not looped. It's just on there as a clip playing once, but then I go to the follow actions and I set it to play, play again after 32 bars. So every 32 bars, there's going to be a crash. My goodness, we have a very special guest in the chat. One of my children who already has more of an online presence publicly than I would like. But she's here. Everybody say hi to Nara. All right, you can see the crash is still just flashing. And after 32 bars goes around, it's going to play itself again. All right. What about the musical stuff? Actually, you know what? Let's pause before I'm getting on a roll a little bit in my mind with the music and the arranging, but we do need to pause and just check in with you guys, remind everyone who we are and why we're here. So, of course, my name is John Selway, and I am doing my usual Saturday stream, Selway's Techno Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm an instructor at 343 Labs. I teach music production classes in Ableton Live and synthesis and sound design for producers. We have a new synth course starting this month online. So if you're interested in getting a little bit more into creative synthesizer use and sound design, come and check us out. Of course, we have the links here to our website, where you can find more information about what's available and more details about the courses. And generally, we have this series of streams, 343 TV. Each instructor that has a show. We come on almost every day. It's pretty much Monday through Saturday with the occasional Sunday. Usually right around 1 o'clock. And various types of material, different styles of music. Max, our friend Max here in the chat, has his Theory Thursdays, which is very informative. My very good friend Abe Duque does Fridays. He does his basic series, which can be all sorts of things. I joined him yesterday for the Forbidden Frequency, which was a lot of fun. Also, good old friend, techno producer and excellent mastering engineer Tim Xavier joined us yesterday. And Max blessed us with his saxophone, which was just a nice way to cap it all off. So, yeah, we have fun. And I have another, hi. I'm just letting them, do you want to tell everybody about 343 Labs? Okay, yeah, don't worry about it. She doesn't know what I'm talking about. So we're also running a giveaway this week. Now that I've almost been knocked off track by my guest over here. We are giving away credit with Splice, right? 4-month subscription to Splice for their samples, which I think, they have a pretty good selection of samples. And, they've got, what I like about Splice is the saving your projects online thing. That's and that's pretty much free, isn't it? Yeah, it's really great. So, but yeah, that combined with access to the subscription for samples, you have so many credits per month you can download, and and they also have plugins that you can rent to own. That's actually how I got my Serum. I decided to try it out monthly and then ended up just paying for the whole thing and keeping it. Of course, now I use Serum in class when we're teaching wavetable synthesis. So yeah, it's a really nice way to get access to certain plugins without having to lay it out all at once up front. Rent to own. I prefer that to a total subscription model, to be honest, like Rolling Cloud. I really want all that rolling cloud stuff, but it's expensive. It adds up over time. I wouldn't mind just being able to choose a couple and buying them, and that's it. Anyway, that's another discussion. So, tomorrow we have. Oh, where'd he go? Atropolis is going to host a feedback session, right? So we've got this going on, starting, I think, a little earlier, right? 12 p.m., if I have that right. And there should be links and information on how to submit your work for feedback, if it isn't too late already. Anyway, somebody, Thomas maybe, can you throw in some info in our chat relevant to the feedback session, which is happening tomorrow? That's going to be really good. And let's get back to the music a little bit now that we've done our little dance and our little spiel about what we're doing here at 343 Labs. So I was just getting into the musical stuff. We've been spending most of the time with the drums. And I already have a basic drum arrangement. And I'm not in here yet. Right, that's kind of the idea, is that you're going beyond just a loop. That's what we're doing today. In case you've joined us late, I've got these loops set up, these clips in Ableton Live in the session view set up, and I've started with my drums were basically, each part was a bar, and I've gone from 1 bar loops to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 bar loops with variations in them, anticipating the type of arrangement moves I might do when I'm working on the timeline, on the linear timeline. And I also mentioned that, if you're someone who wants to get into performing live and triggering clips in real time from a controller, this is also the kind of work you might do ahead of time to prepare loops, to prepare variations to switch between, and also, incorporating some basic use of these follow actions where you can do a preset sequence of clips to play in a particular order. We could also get into randomization and generating real-time arrangement that changes all the time, but let's save that level for another time and keep it sort of more focused on this limited usage of the follow actions. And now I've got a drum arrangement happening. I've got some little fills. I've got some variations in the percussion. I've got the kick drum dropping in and out every 8 bars for, turnarounds for transitions. And let's see if I can apply some of this same stuff to the melodic elements. All right, so we have our bass. Now, I may not want to get way too tricky with changes on this bass. But I think the idea of subtracting to simplify is a really good way to handle this. So I'm going to duplicate that bass, and then take out the high notes. And then now there's a little gap in the rhythm. It changes the groove, which is kind of cool, but I don't want to have that happen all the time. So let's fill in that space, sustain these out a little longer. But then, actually, this is sort of an accident. I didn't really think to do this, but that groove felt a little bit different when I took those high notes out. It kind of paused and jumped a little bit. Maybe that's a cool thing to do every 8 bars or 16 bars or whenever, just to change the vibe just slightly, especially on like a place where the kick drum drops out or I have a transition. So, all right, this was an isolated part of a longer jam. I was just playing around and I improvised my bass line, and then I found the loop that I liked. Let's crop that and then duplicate it. I don't know. I've got 16 bars now. And maybe at the end of 16 bars, I'll do that little thing where the notes are a little bit too short. And let's see if that works as a variation. Actually, it might have been good at the end of 8. Let's see. It's going to be real subtle. Let's see if we notice even. Yeah, it kind of works. Although, I think that's going to work better at later. I'm going to do that at the end of 32. Let's see if I'm right. I don't know if we have time. I'm not going to sit here and listen to this again, but we'll come back to it. We'll see. So we'll just go back a little bit. This is the kind of thing. Now, the other side of this is I'm making these patterns that are 32 bars long now. And if I want to hear how it sounds in context, I have to go back and listen through the whole thing. So this does kind of take time a little more, which is good and bad. It might waste a little time in terms of getting your arrangement done, but it also makes you slow down and listen more often, which I think could be a benefit. But if I were doing this change in the arrangement view, I'd be able to just go right to the part where I want to isolate and hear how that part works or not. But here I have to go in and listen to the whole thing. But that's okay. We can be patient and just listen. But while we do that, let's move on to another melodic part and see what I can do to make some variations, some other variations. Okay, so I just duplicated this to make it 16 bars. Now, this is sort of complicated, this part. A couple of you might have been around when I first was working on this, and some of the notes we're hearing they're sequenced in the synth. There's like an arpeggiation or a step sequencer changing the notes that we hear. Actually, no, it's not an arpeggiator. It's literally a pitch mod. It's a pitch modulation that's rhythmic, so it's making a melodic sequence. So I don't have fine control over every note we're hearing, but I can kind of change the root of what we're hearing. And thus far, we haven't, well, except for a couple of like extra clap and an extra hi-hat here and there, we haven't really added much. We've mostly been subtracting to create variations. So I'm going to try changing the melody slightly. Like just changing a note here or there to make a subtle difference. Let's do this. I'm going to go from this note to this note, up a whole step, back down. And just kind of alternate them and see if that works. No, maybe not. It's not exactly working how easily because of what I described of how the pitches are being modulated in the sound. So what I do here is affecting what the synth is doing, and that doesn't always work. That one was good. All right, so it kind of worked sometimes. It was just a tiny little variation. Earlier I was thinking about what to do with this because I knew this one would be more difficult. And I came up with another way of creating a variation. So basically, here, I'll do it again so you see the process. But what I'm doing as something to alternate between, like the main one and then a variation of it. Basically, I'm just taking that first phrase and I'm going to repeat part of it. Right. So I take this and duplicate it to fill up the rest of it. This may or may not be exactly in time depending on the length that I selected. Okay, I need to do it more often maybe. Let's check out the one that I did earlier, because the timing came out really good by accident. But you see, it's the same thing. I just took a couple of these notes and I'm repeating them, maybe a little bit more often. All right, so that's the idea, taking the 3 notes and letting them repeat for a while, and this is what I ended up with. I like that. It's kind of even more syncopated and a little bit out of time, because it's not repeating exactly on a bar or 2 beats or something. Regine Siller mentions that changing the pitch moved the loop into a tropical sound. Yeah, it's kind of, it already has a little bit. I felt like it already has that. This sound that I chose is one of these presets from Analog Lab, and the way I was playing it has a little bit of a steel drum-ish tone to it. It's almost metallic bell-like, but real soft at the same time. So yeah, I agree. Having the higher pitch did make it slightly more sort of tropical in a way. Now, the other thing I thought about doing is moving the beginning of the loop over so it doesn't play the beginning, because I've got the... That's a dun, 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 right? I'm going to have it loop after. So it's, when I trigger the clip, it's going to start on that note, but then it's not going to play that note again. It's going to loop later. So I have a shorter loop length than I did before. And then if I trigger it again, it's going to play the beginning of the phrase. So it re-triggers the start of that sequence that's out of sync in a way now. And that's actually, that would be a good move for a follow action. I can just have it play again, so I don't have to keep triggering it over and over again myself. Which is what in a live situation, that's what I would do. I would set up my push and just re-trigger that clip when I wanted it to do it. That would be part of my performance. But here, since I'm thinking more about arranging and producing in the timeline, I'll use the follow action and have it play again after, I don't know, 8 bars. So 8 bars, play again. All right, then I have my stabs. These, I don't know. I think I'm going to leave the chord stabs for the arrangement view. That is all of the parts I have for now. As I mentioned earlier, this lead thing that I started working on, I didn't get far enough with. I don't want to spend time like sound designing or looking through presets right now, so we'll just ignore that one for now. Now that I have all of these clips doing stuff, longer, you know, with changes, with things coming in and out, with follow actions that are already set up to do particular moves to play through different groups of clips, I can just record it, and I will already have all this stuff happening in my arrangement view. So let's see what that looks like. Actually, let's do it. Let's get rid of the stabs. And do I want to even start with everything? I don't have to start with everything. Let's start just with the drums and make sure we're set up on the first variation of the... actually, I can even just hit stop. All right. So we're on the first variation of the percussion. And... maybe I'll take the maracas out, and let's just start recording and see how it works. right, so you can see clearly now in the arrangement view where the changes are in the clips. And then if a follow action is playing another clip, you'll see that clip switch exactly on the timeline where it happens. There's that crash again. And because it's not a loop, you just see it drop it in there at that one spot where you want it to be. And that right there at 33 bars is probably where I wanted my open hi-hat to come in. So I'm still going to need to go back and do some subtractive editing to this arrangement. But basically, we want to let this play through long enough to go through all of the changes. Although, okay, I think all of the follow actions have happened. Let's let it go for 64 bars and then we'll stop. All right. We still hear that other percussion going. This one, actually, I should have done something about. We could just hit stop. So, and we'll hit back to arrange. But basically, you'll notice maybe that this track doesn't have any clips on it. So that rhythm that we're hearing on that secondary percussion part is being generated in real time by a sequencer. This is a Max for Live device. This is part of the probability pack. It's actually really cool. Worth taking a look at if you want to get into the Max for Live devices. There's a whole world out there. But it's hard to arrange this. You have to use automation. You have to turn it on and off or mute the track. If what I like to do actually is I'll re-record this MIDI into a clip and then arrange with the clip. So this will be one of the last things I do, but let's throw in a MIDI track, route MIDI from the chaotic clinic track, right? And so this is just capturing the MIDI. It's not sampling audio. Now, we're not seeing anything. I need to go into the next menu down and choose right there. That's where all the MIDI's coming from. You can see, I can actually get individual ones if I want, but you can see each pad in the drum rack that's being played has its own MIDI. I want what's coming out of the whole thing right there where it says drum rack post effect. So that's all of the MIDI notes coming out of that instrument. Now you can see they're all coming in, and I can just record that. So I can arm it. Click record on a clip slot. And then those are all our MIDI notes. I don't need to record that much. It's only a 1-bar loop. But might as well do 8 bars. Maybe later on I'll make some variations. Click on that clip again, and it instantly starts playing. Now, I can just drag this onto here and turn off the sequencer. Now the sequencer's off, it's not playing anymore. And instead of the sequencer playing the drum rack, the MIDI clip that I just recorded is playing the drum rack. And now I can actually drag this in to my arrangement and choose when I want to hear it by putting the MIDI clip where it belongs. All right. Where's that open hi-hat? Let's bring that in. Okay. So we're coming down to the wire here. Actually, it's already 2 o'clock. I can't believe I filled up that last couple of minutes just talking about resampling MIDI from one track to another. That's a good basic live skill to have and to use, especially when you're using real-time sequencing plugins inside or Max for Live devices inside. let's turn back to the chat and say congratulations to our giveaway winner, Misbah Mayan. You have won a 4-month Splice subscription. Hopefully you can make some really good use of that. Get some new samples in your library from their very wide selection. And again, I'm going to plug their DAW archiving sharing platform. It's really great. Definitely. Nowadays with us not all being able to get together in person so much, if you want to work on music with someone, we want to use those tools, and Splice definitely offers something powerful in that regard. So that's it for today. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Detroit Rising, our winner, Misbah, my good old friend Jason, Regine, thanks for coming back. Who else is in here right now? Lush Interpolation, John H. Kingston III, Santa Fantasy. Where do these names come from? Of course, we had our little cameo from my daughter today. She's not having the most fun Halloween, of course, under our circumstances, but we're going to do our best to make things nice and fun for her today. And anyway, everybody from 343 Labs, Max, Thomas, thanks. Tetro, of course. And I'll keep swaying, and we'll see you guys again next week. Whoa, almost messed it up. I did mess it up there. Remember to come back tomorrow for feedback sessions. Submit your projects if there's still time for that, I think. And have a good one. Happy Halloween.